Okay, picture this. You walk into work one day and there's this huge fire in one corner of your office. Now, there are no fire extinguishers here, but your boss tells you that there's a manual on your desk which, if you follow step by step, you can put this fire out no problem. So, you walk over to your desk, but the manual is missing. Sounds very stressful, right? Well, our bodies work in a very similar framework. Everything from the hair on your head to the nails on your toes are all formed using a very specific manual, your DNA. Every wound that is healed, every cell that is replaced, every tissue that is repaired is done with the help of your DNA. But what would happen if for some reason this manual was completely wiped out of your body? What happens to a body that no longer remembers how to heal itself? Today's story is not just a story of a man whose body forgot how to heal itself, it's also the story of corporate greed and of a family that couldn't let go and of doctors who allegedly used a sick, dying man as an experiment for 83 days. Let's talk about it. 35-year-old Hisashi Ouchi was a technician at JCO's fuel processing facility in Tokaimura, Japan. JCO was the company responsible for converting enriched uranium into a fuel for research purposes. Ouchi's life was very ordinary. Go to work every morning, come home every evening, play with your children and go to sleep, and the cycle would just reset. And so on 30th September 1999, that is exactly what he was doing. He went into work that day, met up with his co-worker, they both changed and then they went into a room in this facility. And as soon as they entered this room, their supervisor immediately started yelling at them for being late because they knew that they were already 2 days behind schedule on this project. Now, as Hisashi and his co-worker, they started preparing for this procedure, the supervisor made his way over to his chair and he settled down about 4 meters from where they were about to perform it. And this is a very routine procedure, one both of them had done hundreds of times in the past few months. And in itself, it wasn't even risky. All Ouchi had to do was put this enriched uranium powder into a dissolution tank. The tank would mix it with nitric acid, and when the solution was made, it would directly be transported into a long vertical storage chamber. Now, once this solution was completely settled, only then this storage chamber would start dripping it into a precipitation tank placed right underneath. The whole process was automated, and so there wasn't much Ouchi or his co-worker had to do. All they had to do was pour in the powder and then wait for the machine to do their work. Except that is not how JCO worked. Because time is money, for the past decade, JCO had completely abandoned this automated process. What they did instead was they asked their workers to mix uranium and nitric acid in a stainless steel bucket. Once the solution was made, the worker had to climb up a ladder holding this bucket of solution and then pour it into the precipitation tank manually. Now, you don't need me to tell you why that is a very bad idea. I mean, there is so much room for human error, but simply slipping and falling was the least of their concerns. You see, the reason why the automated process had that long vertical storage chamber was because of a concept called criticality. Fuels like uranium, when at a certain concentration, they hit criticality, meaning their particles, they start holding this self-sustained chain reaction of sorts. Picture this. There are two atoms here. One of them splits, it releases neutrons and a lot of heat into its surroundings. But because this one is so far away, nothing happens. The neutron simply escapes. But what would happen if it was jammed back? Obviously, the released neutron will hit this atom. And this atom, when it splits, it will release more neutrons and more heat. Keep this process going and within seconds, you have billions of these highly charged particles and gamma rays and a lot of heat releasing from the core. And because the precipitation tank was completely covered with water to keep the temperature low, that water can very easily play an agent where the particles basically bounce off of it and come back to the core. And so that is why this process was automated. This vertical storage chamber, it was geometrically designed to keep uranium at a concentration where it does not hit criticality, because once it does, There is nothing you can do as a human to stop it from happening. You need professionals, and even then, it can take hours, maybe even days, to stop this process from completely happening. But none of this had happened before. For over a decade, they'd been mixing uranium in a stainless steel bucket. It never hit criticality, so maybe this process was not that bad at all. And so Ouchi and his co-worker, they start mixing this solution, and once it's ready, Ouchi picks up the bucket and he starts climbing the ladder. And one bucket in, two bucket in, three bucket in. This is an everyday chore to them. They do this almost every single day. And so Ouchi and his co-worker, they start talking about the next task on their to-do list. Ouchi climbs the ladder for the 7th time. But this time, when he pours this solution into the precipitation tank, something happens. There's this very bright blue flash that lasts barely for like 2 to 3 seconds, but Ouchi immediately collapses and the alarms overhead start blaring. Now all three men, they don't know what's happening, but they know something is wrong, so they get up and they run to the decontamination room, and once inside, Ouchi immediately throws up and then he passes out. Now, although neither of them at that moment knew what had happened or what that blue light was, they knew something was seriously wrong. The uranium had hit criticality, and that blue flash was actually these highly charged particles racing through water faster than the speed of light. And so all three of these men were immediately rushed to the hospital. But as soon as the hospital found out the nature of their accident, they were immediately transferred to the National Institute of Radiological Sciences, NIRS for short. So as soon as Ouchi was rushed inside, the nurses noticed that one of his hand was completely swollen. So for the next couple of days, Ouchi was put through multiple tests, and by the end of it, it was determined that his white blood cells were completely gone. His lymphocytes had dropped to complete zero, meaning he had no immune system at this point. Even a common flu can be fatal for him. And one of the nurses remembered Ouchi asking her if this amount of radiation was enough to give him leukemia in a few years. But what he didn't know was that very soon leukemia was going to be the least of his concern. On the third day of his visit, NIRS determined that they too were not equipped to handle a case as severe as Ouchi's. And so Ouchi was transferred to the University of Tokyo Hospital in Tokyo. As he was brought in, a few of the nurses, they noticed him and they later said that he looked fine. I mean, outwardly it looked like he was like badly sunburnt and his hand was still swollen, but overall he was fine. He was talking, even laughing and making jokes. And so for the next few days, they run every single test on Ouchi. Everything you can imagine, they ran on him. His blood panel, they checked why his hand was swollen, his reaction time, everything. They didn't want to leave anything, any page unturned. And by the end of it, they did come to the same realization that A, his immune system was completely wiped out. There were no white blood cells in his body whatsoever. And B, the radiation had basically shattered his entire DNA. There was not a single speck of his DNA left. The chromosomes in his body were so badly damaged that most of them were just completely broken and appeared as small dots on the report, and the ones that weren't shattered, they fused with the other chromosomes and made these really abnormal shapes. Now for context, this is what healthy chromosomes look like under a microscope, and this is what Ouchi's chromosomes look like after that radiation. And so because he was so immunocompromised, the doctors put him in a very specialized room where even doctors and nurses had to go through intense disinfection before being allowed in. And so on most days, Ouchi's family would just sit outside and they can't even peek in because it's all covered up. So they have no idea what's going on inside. They're completely relying on the nurses and the doctors. And the doctors in that moment, they knew that even though Ouchi looked fine, like outwardly, he was talking, he was laughing and everything, they knew that it was only a matter of time before everything goes south. They came up with a plan. Because Ouchi's body could not produce any new cells, they decided that they were going to try an experimental procedure on him. They'll take donor stem cells and put them in Ouchi's body, hoping that these cells can multiply enough to start the healing process. And so, luckily for them, his sister was a perfect match. So, on the 7th day of his hospital visit, they transferred his sister's stem cell into Ouchi's body. But now all they could do was wait. If the procedure was successful or not, they'd only find it out in a week or maybe even more. And so they started waiting, and during this waiting period, one day a nurse was changing Ouchi's dressing. And as she removed the medical tape, Ouchi suddenly started screaming in agony. And she looks at him and then she looks down at this tape, and to her horror, his skin had peeled off with the medical tape. And as she removed more and more medical tape, chunks of his skin started to just peel off of his body. Because his body was not producing any more cells, it was also not producing new skin cells, or it was also not repairing his skin anymore. And so his skin was basically peeling away like a banana peel. And this nurse, she is horrified, and Ouchi is screaming in pain, and it is allegedly said that he yelled at the doctor saying, "I am not your guinea pig." So the doctor started using a very special grade medical tape to avoid this from happening, but they knew that he was deteriorating fast, and they hoped that his sister's cell would work, because if they didn't, the doctors basically had nothing they could do for him. So a few days later, fluid started to fill up his lungs, and so it was really hard for him to breathe on his own. And the doctors knew that the only solution was to put him on a ventilator and intubate him, but that also meant that Ouchi couldn't speak anymore. So before getting intubated, Ouchi was allowed to see his family, and he told his wife how much he loved her and how much he loved their children. And his wife, she told him that she loved him, their children loved him, and that he had to get better for them. And then there was silence. He was intubated and they were waiting again. The days turned into weeks, and there was a ray of hope. His sister's cells had finally multiplied enough, and his white blood cell count was almost back to normal. For the first time since the accidents, the doctors were hopeful that maybe he might survive this. Like, his condition was still very critical, but he was stable after a very long time. But this happiness was very short-lived, as the amount of radiation that Ouchi had received, his cells had basically captured all of that radiation, and now that residual radiation was poisoning these new cells and damaging them too. And so basically the doctors were back to square one, except now Ouchi was deteriorating much faster than before. The linings of his intestines died and they started peeling away exactly like his skin. But that meant the bacteria in those linings was now free to enter his bloodstream and cause sepsis. He started producing about 10 liters of bloody diarrhea every single day. He was losing so much blood and fluids through his raw skin that it took him 10 transfusions a day to just keep up with the amount of blood and fluids he was losing. By day 58, Ouchi's eyes started to bleed because he could no longer close them. His heart was beating so fast, it was as if he was running a marathon every single day. But he wasn't, he was laying in bed. Just to change his dressing, it would take them a team of 10 professionals, and even then, it would take them nearly half a day to finish the task. Ouchi's condition was going down faster than the doctors had expected, and unfortunately, they didn't know what to do. And on the 59th day, his heart finally gave out of the pressure. He went into cardiac arrest thrice, but since there was no DNR orders, the doctors just kept resuscitating him. But all of these heart attacks, they led to one thing: brain damage. Now this is where a lot of people start having different opinions. Some people believe that maybe the doctor should have just let him pass. Like, he had been through enough, there was no reason to resuscitate him. But again, blaming them doesn't really seem right, because there was no DNR order, and so they didn't really have an option. This was protocol for them. Some people also believe that it was Ouchi's family that didn't allow the doctors to let him die. They were just not ready to let go yet, while others say that the doctors knew he was not going to survive this ordeal, but they wanted to use his body for more experimental procedures. We'll never know. But what we know is that beyond this point, Ouchi was as good as dead. He would stay unconscious for most of the days, and on the days that he was awake, he would just stare into the distance at nothing in particular. His organs started to fail, and the doctors just didn't know what to do anymore. His family, on the other hand, prayed. There's a Japanese urban legend that states that if you fold 10,000 paper cranes, then it brings health to your family. And so his family, they started folding these paper cranes, and they weren't allowed to bring them into Ouchi's room because he was so immunocompromised. So they would just leave it by his door. But on the 81st day, the doctors, they just knew that Ouchi's end was very near and his condition was really bad. And so they made their way over to the family, the head doctor, and he tells them that, it was time they let him go. Like, this was causing him so much more pain than he deserves, and it's time that you let go and sign the DNR. And his family, obviously, they are devastated. Their son, their husband, their father, he's dying in such a horrible way, and they can't believe something like this could ever happen to him, but they have no option. They don't want to increase his misery any more than they already have. And so on the 81st day, the family signed the DNR order. On the 83rd day, Ouchi, finally all of his organs were shutting down, and the doctors knew that it was his time. So they uncovered his face and his hands, like they removed all of the bandages, and they let the family see Ouchi one last time before he passed away from multiple organ failure. The worst part of this story is that out of the 83 days, for the first 59 days, Ouchi was completely conscious. He was completely coherent, meaning he could tell what was happening to his body, all the pain, all the blood loss, everything. He was experiencing it. He was stuck inside a body that was dying from the inside out, but there was nothing he could do. He couldn't escape. He couldn't even scream for help. That is one of the most horrifying details of this case. Ouchi's suffering was immense. JCO soon lost their license after Ouchi's death, and all of the higher officials were charged with criminal negligence. The supervisor, who was also present at the site of the accident, he too was charged with criminal negligence, although because he also received such a high dosage of radiation, it took him months to recover from it. He did make a full recovery, but it did take him like nearly a year to recover from that radiation. JCO paid an undisclosed amount to Ouchi's family and all of the other families that were affected by this radiation, because the thing is, once that uranium core hit criticality, it didn't just stop after Ouchi and his co-workers were irradiated. No, it kept going for 20 hours straight. And so for a lot of the locals, they were asked to move, and those who couldn't move, they were asked to strictly stay indoor. And at the 20th hour, finally the professionals were able to like empty the water tank and then put boric acid inside to finally stop this chain reaction. Another detail of this case is Ouchi's co-worker. He too received a very high dosage, not as high as Ouchi's, but he did receive a very high dosage of radiation, and he too passed away, except his suffering was more prolonged. Everything that happened to Ouchi happened to Masato Shinohara, except over the span of 211 days, meaning he saw what was happening to Ouchi, he knew it was going to happen to him, but there was nothing he could do about it. He just laid in bed waiting for his body to just die. Another thing that this case did was it brought up a very huge ethical dilemma. You see, the doctors, they resuscitated him, and that prolonged his misery a lot longer than it should have. And so a lot of people think that it was unnecessary and that they should have euthanized him when they realized that there was no saving him, instead of just, keeping him alive. Whether they were using him as an experiment or whether it was actually the family forcing them to keep going, we'll just never know. Like, a lot of sources online claim it was like Ouchi was treated as an experimental guinea pig, but there are also a lot of sources that state that the family were the one that didn't let these people euthanize him. So I guess we'll never know. So that's gonna do it for this video, guys. If you found it interesting, make sure to let me know in the comments and like and subscribe. Bye.